Good afternoon, dear students. Today is 5th November 2020, and for the students of BA semester 5th who adopted the population studies in economics subject, today I will deal with the mortality trends in less developed and developed nations. Earlier I told you about the measurement of mortality and various factors of mortality. Today I will teach you mortality trends in less developed and developed nations. So let's start by raising a question that when are child deaths occurring? Because you have to deal with mortality, then you should ask yourself the question that when are child deaths occurring? So students, the 10.6 million annual child deaths are not distributed evenly over the 0-4 years age period. And more than 70% of all child deaths occur in the first year of life, which is called as infant mortality. And of these, nearly 40% occur in the first month of life, that is called as neonatal period. And I already told you about these three measurements in the earlier periods. So again the next question is, where are child deaths occurring? Then you can say that only 2 WHO regions account for more than 70% of all under 5 deaths. And dear students, you can see that 42% in the African region and 29% in Southeast Asian region, in which India also falls. And when you disaggregate that, then you will find that only 6 countries account for 50% of all child deaths. India, Nigeria, China, Pakistan, Ethiopia and Congo. And these all are the countries of African and Southeast Asian region. Okay. And then the next question comes in our mind. What are the under 5? What are under 5s dying of? कैसे मर रहे हैं वो? So dear students, you can see that 50% are dying with these 5 diseases: pneumonia, diarrhea, malaria, measles and HIV/AIDS. And now the new one comes as a COVID-19, which is a pandemic. Okay, so the cause is because due to malnutrition contributes to more than half of the under 5 deaths. So here, dear students, we have to address the issue of malnutrition for the avoid of mortality rate and for the sake of more development in our nation. We know that in the previous weeks, in hunger index released by the World Institution, India is a very poor condition, 98th position in out of 104 countries. So we have to very carefully study these topics. And then the question comes that what are neonates died of? Again you can see only 5 diseases: preterm births, severe infections, asphyxia, congenital anomalies and tetanus. 75% of neonatals die from these diseases, and these all are the symptoms of least developed nations. So this is a very concerning figure for India also. So Millennium Development Goal 4 and 5 constitutes a particular challenge, and they say then 57 countries likely to reduce child mortality by 2/3 in 1990 to 2050 already passed, but still intra-country disparities is found here. 16 countries retrogression, significant increase in child mortality. This is a very concerning figure. And progress is slow or stagnating in sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia is seen. And 42 countries accounted for 90% of all child deaths. Just very carefully see that only 42 countries accounted for 90% of all child deaths. And over 1 billion children severely deprived of basic health and other social services linked with the poverty and conflict and HIV. इसीलिए तुम लोग देखो कि इस बार का जो नोबल पीस प्राइस मिलता है वो इसलिए मिलता है कि जहाँ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो रहा है, जहाँ गरीब देश हैं, वहाँ यूनाइटेड नेशंस का सबसे बड़ा प्रोग्राम वर्ल्ड फूड प्रोग्राम को नोबेल पीस प्राइज मिलता है, क्योंकि पॉवर्टी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का बहुत बड़ा कारण है. So this is a very interesting to know that this is linked to poverty, conflict and HIV/AIDS. So dear students, let's talk about the India's share of the global burden of births and child deaths. Then you can see that India's share in live births is 20%, child death is 20%, infant death is also 24%, which is very high and concerning. And neonatal death is even more high, that is 30%. So this is a very disturbing figure in context of India's development story. And then when we talk about the trends in maternal mortality rate, this is also very disturbing, and this is a table. I will send you this video. You can go with this table and with graph, and then age specific death rates you find. Then in less developed and more developed regions, age specific death rates also differs. In more developed regions, 75 plus age is less, and less development in less developed regions 75 plus age is more, death is more. So this is also interesting figure. When you talk about the trend, you can see, dear students, the infant mortality rates by region, and you can see that yellow one is African graph, highest infant mortality, and green one is a Asian, South Asian marks, lower than Africa but still high, and blue one is the average of world. And lastly, below the maroon one is a more developed nation, which is a parallel to the x-axis. So you can better compare Africa, South Africa, Asia and world, or you can compare with least developed or developed nations in regarding to infant mortality growth in the nations. This is few indicators which you should learn. Less developed country and more developed countries. That is, in more developed countries, there is a crude birth rate is low, and in lower developed countries, crude birth rate is high. In MDCs, crude death rate is low, and in LDC, that is low. In infant mortality is MDC low, and in LDC high. Literacy rate is MDC high, and in LDC low. School enrollment is high in MDC, and that is low in LDC. Total fertility rate is low in MDC, and that is high in LDC. Total percentage of population under 15 is low in MDC, and that is high in LDC. Life expectancy is high in MDC, and that is low in LDC. Natural increase rate is low in MDC, and that is high in LDC. GNP per capita is high in MDC, and that is low in LDC. Primary economic activities are low in MDC, and that is high in LDC. That means agriculture is high in LDC and low in MDC. Service economic activity is high in MDC, and that is low in LDC. Percent living in rural area is low in MDC and naturally high in LDC. And lastly, percentage living in urban area is very high in MDC, and that is low in LDC. So you can also compare with these indicators difference between more developed countries and less developed countries. And that's how these topics end. And then the next one simple thing is, what are the factors affecting mortality? So very speedily I can suggest you that first is sanitation, second is climate, third is communications or infrastructure, fourth is age structure, fifth is diet and nutrition, and sixth is economic growth. All these 6 factors affects the mortality, whether to avoid or decrease the mortality rate or whether to increase the mortality rate. For example, when you talk about the sanitation, polluted water can transmit diseases. That is, cholera and typhoid will increase, and that is the major cause of death in low developed countries. And climate, slight increase in temperature has increased world's agriculture output, therefore reducing the risk of famine and bad harvest. And communication means better movement of food, easier access to urban services for rural areas and hospital, and that is a good for health. And age structure, and aging population or graying population raises the mortality levels in the country. And when you talk about the diet, improved diet has helped the life expectancy to rise in the number of countries. Example, Mediterranean countries and the fish oil diet. And lastly, economic growth, improvement in the economy when coupled with good distribution of health care, education and food, this is also resulted in the reductions in mortality. So this all 6 factors affects the mortality rates in developed nations also and in developing nations also. Thank you.